All right, thank you both for joining me. Cathy, let's start with you. Obviously, last season was a record-breaking one for the WNBA, fueled by Caitlin Clark coming into the league. How do you make sure that coming into this season you build off the momentum that year one brought, with so much success?
Yeah, it's a great question because we did break all kinds of records, but we, again, have those players in the league this year, and now we have great rookies that are coming into the league. So I call it sustain and gain. So sustain the momentum from last year, but gain on it. And I think we have a huge opportunity to do that.
Just, sort of nuts and bolts. How do you do it?
It's just continued marketing, continued tune in, we've got, as part of the partnership with Ally, a Rivals Week that's going to kill it with some great matchups. And it's just continued storytelling around the level of play these elite athletes are putting on the court every day.
Andrea, I'll bring you in. Ally has been a long-time investor in the WNBA, women's sports in general. Are you starting to see real returns on those investments yet?
Yeah, absolutely. We have had absolutely incredible business results since we made our 50-50 pledge 3 years ago. Our brand valuation last year was up 32% year over year. And you look at the financial services category, the category dropped 3 percentage points. So think about that as a 35% swing. 65% of everybody that's coming to our storefront, given that we're a digital bank, no brick and mortar, is female. And we're seeing our fans of female sports 6 times more likely to convert than all other prospects that are coming. So I think for us, the results speak for themselves.
So we've seen many millions of people watch the women's NCAA tournament. Last year, record-breaking numbers with Caitlin Clark. This year, the numbers were strong again. How do you take the popularity of women's college basketball and transfer it to the pro game?
Yeah, I think last year was a transformative year for that. We brought in tens of millions of new viewers. We had 64 million unique viewers just in the United States of our games last year. So that was a huge step. That was double the prior year. So we're well on our way to bringing that NCAA fan in, and actually even broader than that when you think about the unique viewers we had last year. But we need to continue to storytell, market around these players, but really important. And also our broadcast partners and our corporate partners. I mean, there is not a sporting event today that you don't see an ad spot with WNBA players in it, because our corporate partners and our media partners have stepped up to elevate the visibility of these players and really market around them. And we just had one of our partners, Nike, take Sabrina Ionescu over on an Asian tour. That's important to help us globalize the game. So we not just the NCAA fans coming into the W, but also global fans. And it really started to happen last year in a big way.
Netflix's sports strategy is to sort of eventize existing sports. We've seen it with their commitment to Christmas games in the NFL. And it seems to me that maybe more and more streamers are thinking about how do we make an existing sport that has a lot of tonnage of games into an event. Are you thinking about certain ways to making the WNBA into more of an event like March Madness?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're doing around our All-Star game is WNBA Live, which is more of a fan fest. So it doesn't always have to be media driven. It can also be fan driven, as we're trying to bring in a lot of new fans into the game. We're also thinking about our own version of global games, admired what the NBA has done for many years around their global games platform. We've got some interesting preseason games this year, holding them at colleges like Notre Dame and LSU in Oregon. So that'll be really in Iowa. So those 4 games will be very interesting. And just continuing to think innovatively, like you said, Netflix might look at a one-off type game versus, obviously a broadcast package of 40, 50 games.
Andrea, Ally has already signed Paige Bueckers to a sponsorship deal. How do you decide who the right athlete is to do business with? And what is it about Paige Bueckers that says to you, this is an athlete that can help my business?
Well, I think first of all, with regard to Paige, look, you think about her social currency alone and her followership, more social media followers than any athlete that played in March Madness, either male or female. That's an incredible footprint that she already has, and a great ubiquity. I think the second thing is there's an authenticity. She has a great interest in financial literacy and financial education. We're going to be doing some things with Paige around that. And as a bank, finding somebody that has a good money story, that has something that has to offer from that perspective is important to us as well. I think she's younger. She brings in an incredible footprint of people, both male and female. And we like to find people that share our values. And in our couple meetings that we've had with Paige, definitely felt that there was a huge value alignment there.
You talk about her financial literacy and just sort of your role as a bank. This is really a question for both of you. I'm interested to hear both of your takes on this. We're seeing some financial movement in our markets that we have not seen in many years right now. Of course, CNBC is a business network, a financial network. Are you guys starting to think about what's going on, broadly speaking, with these tariffs in terms of your businesses? Are you seeing an effect already?
Yeah, I obviously follow from my prior life the financial markets very closely, big CNBC watcher. And obviously we're looking at sports a lot about discretionary spend and what happens in a recession or what happens when there's volatility or uncertainty. People cut back their discretionary spend. So certainly contingency planning, scenario planning around what's happening and following it very closely. But again, we think we have a great platform, a growth platform. We can help companies grow even in uncertain times. As Andrea pointed out in some of the data that she has from her perspective in supporting women's sports.
Yeah, and I think for us, similarly, look, as a financial services company, obviously we're all watching the macroeconomic environment really closely, and hopefully we'll see some good resiliency from a consumer side. For us, we control what we can control. We are a great, safe harbor in terms of a place for people to put money and to keep money. And for us, we're like every other company, I think, doing a lot of that same scenario planning, but feel like the resiliency of the business is very strong.
Cathy, are you worried about the effect this may have on ticket sales for this season?
Not this season for sure, because most of our arenas are already sold out. And but certainly as Americans look and consumers look globally and in the US at their discretionary spend, again, sports I think can actually be a great uniter and a great place to get away from the uncertainty and the chaos. So I'm not worried this year, but certainly as we go forward, if we were to enter into a deep recession of some sort, then you start to look again at scenario plans and contingency plans around that. But people have proven that they like sports as an entertainment product. And certainly I think the WNBA has been something that has been growing in popularity and visibility. So again, but always scenario planning around things that are happening in the economy.
CNBC Sport recently did a panel on women's basketball in the WNBA. One of the interesting things that I thought came out of it was that Nneka Ogwumike talked about the need for differentiation between the WNBA and the NBA. Cathy, do you agree with this, and how do you do that?
Well, I think, again, the last couple of years we've had raising that capital in February of 22 when we raised $75 million in capital, being able to do a whole digital transformation. Obviously, our game is very differentiated already in the way, the pure form of the basketball that our players put on the court every night. Obviously, our season's much shorter. Again, we, did the Commissioner's Cup Championship as our in-season competition a few years before the NBA's Cup. So there's a variety of ways we'll look to innovate around the women's game that we'll have the opportunity to do so, but continued to, obviously recognize, men's sports have been around 75 to 100 years longer than we have in some cases. But we are the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the country. So continue to innovate how we think about our product on the court, our fan experience, the game presentation, et cetera. It will be important as we go forward.
Yeah, one of the interesting facts that I learned at the panel was that obviously you have Golden State as a new expansion team. They've already sold 10,000 season tickets. I learned only 5% of those season tickets had overlap with Warriors holders, which speaks to the fact that these two leagues clearly have very different audiences. Is one of your goals to actually broaden the overlap and get more NBA fans interested in the WNBA? Or is that not a goal where you see these two things as kind of distinct entities serving different audiences?
Yeah, I think we've always been focused on kind of the data and what the data gives to you from the perspective of who is your fan today? What are the fan segments you're not touching you should be? One of the things we identified a few years ago was the NCAA fan, bringing them in, which we did in big numbers last year. So it's making sure you understand who your fan is, why they stay, what markets you need to be in. The Bay Area was a market when I first joined the league that I couldn't understand, with technology driving so much of our economy here in the US. And obviously with the big universities there, the big corporate partners there, why didn't we have a team in the Bay Area? So that was, again, very data-driven exercise to say we should bring in that not only big media market, but a great market for women's sports. And I wouldn't have predicted the 4% you just threw out, but I would have predicted a very large fan base that doesn't necessarily have to be the same as the men's game. So not necessarily a strategy, but certainly something we continue to look at the fan segments and who we can bring into our game.
One more CNBC money question is this issue of salary. It came up in the panel a lot that the highest WNBA women's salary is just $250,000 a year. Cathy, how much urgency is there to change this so that salaries look more commensurate with even some of the NIL payments we see in college?
Well, again, we were in a very different place 5 years ago than we are today. We were at the margins of professional sports, just surviving, and we raised that capital. Now we're in huge growth mode. So again, it was all about the statistic I heard when I first joined the league, that less than 1% of all corporate partnership dollars went to women's sports, and less than 5% of all media coverage went to women's sports. So this partnership with Ally that we just announced is a huge step, along with our other WNBA change makers, in changing the narrative about how corporates invest in women's sports and moving those percentages up. As Andrea talks about her 50-50 pledge, we want more companies to do that, because that's ultimately how on the men's side, men get paid so much money. It's through media rights and corporate partnerships. And obviously, if you build it, they will come, and we've been building it, and our fans are coming. So we'll be able to return a lot of that ultimately in a much better economic model to fund things like player pay and benefits.
Yeah, Alex, I would add to that I think, we talk a lot at Ally about the vicious circle, and it was the thesis behind our 50-50 pledge. And the vicious circle was really all around the fact that the leagues cannot sustain without brand investment, and that rolls down in terms of player salary. And so it is requisite for more and more brands to step up and support. And still today, you see less than 6% of the Fortune 500 fully investing in women's sports. And so I think, companies need to do better. And it's a big part of the reason why we've built such a strong portfolio around the women's sports ecosystem. It's an incredible business proposition, and it's the only way that you're going to kind of break that vicious cycle.
Cathy and Andrea, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.